What's going on? What's going on? It's your boy, Storyteller Jet, with another episode of the Dat'z So Fire Talkshow. And today we have a fire conversation coming up right here with Joe Faw. Joe, we've known each other for maybe a year now or so.
At least, maybe a couple. Yep.
Yeah. Super excited to have the show with you today. So maybe about a year when you were using the studio here, and I was like, this guy is so smart, and I want to have him on my studio doing a talk show with me whenever I start one. I didn't even have was ready to do that yet. So super excited to have you on the show. We're gonna start by doing a quick introduction of who you are, and we'll rock and roll.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I'm excited to be here. Thank you.
Awesome. So who is Joe Faw? And we have some technical difficulty moving back there. Sorry. It's all good. Let's start by doing a quick introduction. Who's Joe Faw?
Yeah, so who am I? So I'm a father. I'm a husband. We own a business. I've got a few other kind of entrepreneurial endeavors that I'll maybe share with you here today. In general, I'm a competitive guy. I think if I was to die on the car ride home, I hope that tomorrow what people would say about me is that he's pretty authentic, he's trustworthy, and he does what he says he's going to do. So I would say in a nutshell, that's probably who I want to be and who I hope I am.
This is fantastic. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Let's now start. You're an entrepreneur. How did the journey get started?
Yeah, so I would say, I was, the quick story is that I was born in Dunedin, Florida. My dad was in the telecommunications industry. So because of that, we had to move to Canada when I was 3 or 4 years old. And then we moved over to England until third grade for me. So I kind of grew up in England.
I was going to say shout out to Rob Faw.
There you go. Yeah. So in England, we kind of were brought up, my brother and I, British schools. So we kind of understood what the king and the queen and parliament was and didn't know what a president was and that kind of thing. So came back here in third grade, had to acclimate to kind of the culture, so to speak. We did have an English accent, which was pretty funny. So I used to run around and say, "Mommy, can I please have a biscuit?" which was a cookie or something like that. So that was fun. Fast forward to the high school years, my identity, my life was basically soccer. I would say that I'll call it a healthy obsession, but I was very into soccer growing up. I played for the Clearwater Chargers from under 10 to under 19.
Wow.
We won the AAU national championship once, made it to the state finals, won a few times. So very competitive soccer. The reason I bring that up is I think that kind of shaped, what teamwork meant. At a young age, you just kind of were experiencing that competitiveness. In our team, if you were good, you got to play. And if you weren't, you didn't. And you didn't, it wasn't the age where the parents complained to the coach. It just kind of happened that way. So I think part of my journey is that, going into my freshman year of high school, they graduated about 15 seniors the year before. So we were a very young team. And the high school, had won districts 18 years in a row. And we were really good, I said,
incredible.
So yeah, we won state championship the year before in club. And then my 9th grade year, we lost as a team 20 games. And prior to that, my whole life, I think we lost, maybe I could count on 2 hands.
That's crazy. I played soccer in high school too.
Okay.
And we did not lose any game until the final. We lost the most important game. And I was the one that missed my PK and
really?
I was the only one that scored, but I was the one that's basically lost. We lost the game because I missed my PK at the end.
Really?
So my friends still to this day just remind me of all of us using that against our competitive schools. So that's awesome that you did that.
I won't try to one up you here, but so my story was we lost a bunch of games my freshman, sophomore year. Fast forward to junior year, we had good chemistry. We were better, but we still weren't seniors yet, right? So we went to penalty kicks to get into the finals. We went to 24 penalty kicks, believe it or not, against Miami Gulliver. I've never sudden death. You know how that works, right? So our goalkeeper saved the last PK. We get into the final 4. Now we're in the semifinals. We played against Gainesville Eastside. I know I'm going back to 1996 here. I took the final PK, made it. We were tied. I think it was either 0-0 or 1-1. I made the final PK. Now we're in the state finals. And that year we played against a team called Jesuit. The only 2 losses we had that entire year were to Jesuit during the regular season.
Yeah.
And they were all a little older than us, seniors. Anyways, long story short, we won, getting a little bit of goosebumps, which it probably shouldn't matter to me at the age of 46. But anyway, so that happened. Senior year, we won again. So we were ranked in the nation. So my point is that my identity was soccer. I'm not necessarily sure that was good. I think I could maybe scold myself a little bit for not being as well-rounded as maybe I possibly could, but I was just obsessed. And, my parents were, hey, do good in school, do good in soccer. You'll mature at some point, keep getting educated. And that was kind of the mindset in our family. So it did work out. So anyway, so I decided I was getting recruited in a couple places, but I was a little burnt out in soccer. Went to Florida State for 2 years. Wasn't a great fit for me. So then I transferred to University of San Diego. That's probably that pivotal moment, I would say, in my journey as an adolescent. So I was 19 years old at that time. The reason that it was pivotal was that I didn't have any friends. I just literally picked a school because I thought San Diego was going to be cool, and I didn't have any friends that were 3,000 miles. My closest friend was in Florida, and I was in San Diego. That was very good, though, because it made me stretch myself, not be friends with just because, you're the soccer kid and all your soccer friends. So that kind of like removed that identity. And I had to kind of reinvent myself. I was a junior, so that was a little harder than being a freshman, making friends. Sure. I got real into surfing more because I liked the beach and I liked the scenery and I liked the way it kind of made me feel from an athletic standpoint. And I started doing well in one particular class, which was a real estate class taught by Dr. Mark Reedy, who was a high up at Fannie Mae. And he asked me if I wanted to be president of the Student Builder Association. I didn't even know what that meant. My dad wasn't in construction. I told you he was in telecommunications. And so I said yes, and we started recruiting people to the club. Anyways, I would say at that was kind of the moment where I started doing well in school. I started getting good grades. It started clicking. And one thing I would say to other entrepreneurs out there is, you usually start liking what you're good at. That's what I found, right? So I started getting good at that and it became easier for me. I started having some success. People started noticing. And so that was kind of at that time, I was in San Diego. I started doing well in that class and then kind of came back. Was working in the summer times in Florida, real estate, flipping houses, doing those kind of things with people. They were just hiring us to do little jobs here and there. Think of it as just grunt work in the summer, family members, help, that kind of thing. And that's where I met, Jerome was in my high school, but my business partner, Jerome, also co-founder of Beta Bay. Him and I started doing that in the summer times together. And then I went to University of Tampa for grad school and I learned what an LLC was, and the next day we started Beta Bay Properties. So I lived on Mission Bay in San Diego. I was from Tampa Bay, and so we said Beta Bay because we wanted to flip houses, what we thought we wanted to do, and that's where Beta Bay Properties came from. So that was June of 2003.
That is June 2003.
Yeah.
Wow. So that's what
22 years. Yeah.
22 years. That's incredible that it's been around for that long.
Yeah.
So Beta Bay got started. So how did you get your first project? What was the story behind your first project?
Yeah, so our first project was 2 of our really good friends, a guy named Mike Phillips and Will Wired, at the time had bought a house in St. Pete. It was a 1926 remodel, fix and flip. We built a 800 square foot deck in the back, wrapped it around, a tree, multi-level, redid the entire interior. As you can imagine, 1926, the doors and the windows were crooked. Everything was old. So, pretty interesting. Now, I think we made maybe $900 and we spent 7 months of our lives trying to, it definitely equates to maybe 7 cents an hour is what I would probably earn on that first job. So your next question might be, well, why did you keep doing the next one?
Absolutely.
I guess the answer is I don't know. We just felt like it wasn't about that and we learned. So it was basically a crash course learning, but we sacrificed all of our time. So, I was still finishing up school at the time. So we had 6 months left of school. I was done in December. We started in June, like I just mentioned. And then Mike Phillips's brother asked us if we would do another remodel for a fee, not for fix and flip, down on Clearwater Beach. We did that. And then Will asked us if we would remodel his condo it was a place in North Clearwater Beach. We did that. Next thing you know, the sales guy started bringing people to Will's condo, and so then we did 14 of them. And I'll never forget this. So there was one day we were on North Quarter Beach, and it was called 880 Mandalay is the address. And we were up on I think it was the 10th or 11th floor, and I was looking back over the Intercoastal kind of towards Safety Harbor. And I said to Jerome, I said, do you know how to build a house? He goes, of course I know how to build a house. My dad built a house, but Jerome's one of those guys that just, he can do anything kind of thing. I'm like, yeah, but can you do it with the right schedule, right budget? And he convinced me. He was the guru in construction. I was more kind of the paperwork guy and basically his grunt. I begged my parents to give me a loan to buy a lot in Safety Harbor, and we built our first house. Someone came and saw it and they're like, can you build a house for me? Fast forward 2 years, we had 11 houses under construction. I remember I read a magazine with the top 100 builders in Florida. And it was all based off volume, like how many permits you pulled from the quarter before. And we had pulled 9 permits that quarter. It was just the two of us. And we were I think it was like number 96 out of 100 builders in Florida.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is an incredible story, not having any experience doing that. And that started with like a class that you took in college that got your interest piqued.
Yeah.
And also like the incredible journey of spending 7 months of your life doing something at 97 cents.
Yeah.
Like most people at this point, they probably would have quit.
Yeah.
They would have said, okay, this is, too much. I'm not made for this. We're not going to be able to make money off that. But you got stuck it out. And now you are running a business that is projected to make over 150 million a year.
Yeah.
What incredible story and doing all of that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. I mean, it's kind of, I don't really know anything different. So I don't have a great perspective on, when I used to work at this company or I saw. So at some level, it sounds kind of cooler than it really was. Where I was lucky was that my parents paid for my education. So I didn't have any debt. Which means but I also didn't have any assets. I wasn't married at the time, right? I didn't have any kids. So the risk that I took at some level, when you look back, seems like, oh my gosh, you should have quit. At the time you had your MBA, you could have probably gotten a job pretty easily for 60, 70,000 a year back in those days. But one thing my dad always said, he goes, I saw you and Jerome waking up every single day at 6 a.m., coming home at 7 o'clock at night. And you guys were sweating and you were excited. And so he just kind of saw that. So we were fortunate that we didn't have debt that we had to deal with. And that's kind of like what happened. Now, good or bad, I've never had a job other than an internship other than Bay to Bay.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the story. And yeah, fast forward to today, we've got, right around 65 employees. We work in 5 different states: North Carolina, South Carolina, Alabama, Georgia, Florida. We are kind of in a growth mindset right now, which I can explain a little further if you want. I believe last year we did right around 100 million. This year we're kind of projecting right around that 150 mark. And I think we can honestly get to 200, 250 in short order. But a lot of that is because of the team we have, the infrastructure we put in place, and the process-oriented mindset.
Awesome. Yeah, we are definitely going to talk about the culture, the team, how to hire the right people. We're going to talk about everything that is helping you to grow that business to $150 million, because I think a lot of people watching this could benefit from that as well. But I want to take one step back. What advice would you give to entrepreneurs out there starting a business and facing a lot of hurdles, you stuck with it after making 97 cents an hour?
Yeah.
But what advice would you give to those people that are watching this, that are planning to start a business, that are going through the thick of it right now?
Yeah. So I kind of think of that in 2 parts. The earlier years, the truth is you just don't know any different. And I would almost argue ignorance was bliss. If you ask me right now, would I do it again? I don't know. I don't know exactly. I might do it in a different way. I definitely don't think I was being as intentional as I am now. But part of that too is you got to give yourself a little grace that, experience comes from bad judgment comes from experience. Experience comes from, my point is we need to have when we make mistakes, bad judgment, if you throw that in the experience bucket, and then good judgment comes after all of those bad. So the way I think today is because of all of the mistakes and all of the issues and all of the perseverance and all of the resiliency that I had previously. So I have a lot of gratitude and respect for those early days. But where I am now, and if you said, hey, coach up a 25-year-old or a 30-year-old that wants to do something, is I cannot function without being intentional. And so what I mean by that is laser focused on doing certain things well, not doing everything okay. I think what I would say is that, be disciplined and truly be vulnerable as well. Understand who you are. Like in our business, you've got a sales, business development team, an estimating team, an operations team, a finance compliance team, HR, consultants, things like that. Joe Faw is not good at all of those things.
Yeah.
Right. And so my gut tells me that, people watching are not going to be good at all of those things. Very few people are. So I think what I don't see out there in the world is I don't see a lot of vulnerability, and I don't see a lot of people telling me what they're not good at. I see a lot of people telling me that they're good at everything.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a big problem. I think it's okay to acknowledge that you're not good at everything, and then you can say, okay, well, now who do I need to surround myself with? Should I outsource it? Should I partner with somebody? Those kinds of questions that you should be asking yourself to truly scale a company, to be anything what's scalable, self-sufficient, diversified. You can't really do it if the owner and the leadership can't acknowledge what they're not good at.
Absolutely.
So I would say vulnerability is a big thing for me right now, and intentionality is kind of what I preach and what I think about a lot today.
Yeah, I think this is also very, very important. And this is probably one of the biggest, I wouldn't say mistake that people are making, not being vulnerable. Being vulnerable is actually one thing that truly connects you with the people, like on social media. If you are creating vulnerable content, or like sharing your past, or like things that you stumbled upon, like other people can identify with that.
Yeah.
But if you just like solely focus on your success and like pat on the back all the time, like that's gonna turn off people.
Yeah.
Like we are, as human, that's like one of the really great way for you to be able to connect with other people and for you to continue growing your business. Actually, that might be one of the things that helps you like reach out to other people and connect with them as well.
Yeah.
So that's pretty awesome that's a big thing for you right now. And a lot of entrepreneurs too, like as the leader, they want to show like, the best thing about them to their employees, not necessarily showcasing like, the failure moment or the stress, all the other things. But like when you do that and showcase that to your employee, like they are, I guess, like more willing to like, work with you and just like, growing together.
Right.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, vulnerability, the result of vulnerability is trust. And then I can't think of any healthy culture that doesn't have trust, right? Like I can't picture that. So, you might not have the best personality. You might not be able to articulate your thoughts you might not be able to understand a spreadsheet at a certain level, but if you're vulnerable and you're curious and you exude that authentically, right? You remember in the beginning I said, I care about being authentic. Then you're comfortable and confident saying that you're vulnerable and I'm not good at these things. And it's kind of counterintuitive because you think I need to tell the employees and I need to tell team members and I need to tell that I'm good at everything. That's why I'm a leader. It's actually the exact opposite.
100%.
And I don't think, I think we should talk about that more. So, I mean, I'm glad we're talking about it now, but I think, everybody kind of listening, I hope they really kind of think through that. And what are you good at? I write it on a piece of paper. I mean, the number one thing that I need to do right now in terms of improving myself is I need to slow down in all aspects of my life, right? And when I do slow down, I get better outcome. I can think about it. I get more buy-in. I'm collaborative more, like all good things. When I try to go too fast, right, I will skip over things. I'll maybe discount. I won't be as curious. So, for me right now, that's probably the number one thing that I need to work on, that I need to continually work on. It's been on my list for 3 years. I just can't get it off the list, to be honest with you. Partly my personality, but that's something I'm really trying to work on as well.
That's awesome. Yeah, thank you for sharing for that. Like this talk show is mostly about sharing like advice to other people.
Yeah. And
doing that, what advice would you give people that are considering about like living their life more authentically or more with more vulnerability? Like what is the step one that they can do, like going 0 to 1, for them to start living that way?
Yeah, so I would say you have to read, right? Because there's a lot of really good entrepreneurs, individuals, people, history that can teach you things. So, I mean, there's a handful of books that I would kind of recommend. I do think I was fumbling over early, but the quote, I can't remember who said this, so I apologize, but good judgment comes from experience. Experience comes from bad judgment. So one other thing I would look at is, where did I make bad moves? What can I learn from them, right? And then that way in the future, you're not doing that as much. But I think vulnerability, I think reading. I would also say, if people are being serious and they really want to, grow, who are the 5 people that you talk to the most? And if the 5 people you talk to the most are not perpetuating growth, are not stimulating and having conversations, and you're not feeling uncomfortable, it's probably a good sign that in a year from now, your life will look pretty similar to how it looks today.
Deep.
Yeah. So, I was actually talking to Kate, who you know very well, and she basically runs the company at this point. She's awesome. But we were talking about there's a big difference between who you are and who you want to be. And then the question is that good or bad? Like, I want to be a little bit different than I am today. And I could argue that's growth. I think when people project or say who they want to be compared to who they are, that's when we're getting into, well, you're not that. You're acting like you are. Now you're fake. Mm-hmm. You're not authentic, right? You're not vulnerable, everything we just talked about. So I would say, everybody, really think about vulnerability. Who are you hanging out with? What are you exposing yourself to? And one of the best ways that I can kind of think about this is, on a Saturday night when your phone's not blowing off the hook and people aren't scheduling studio visits, and what do you do with your time? And if you're reading, if you're self-improving, if you're, my dad's kind of Catalyst network and what that means, and I love Catalyst because it's just like, it forces me to think about self-improvement, self-development, empowerment, resiliency, growth mindset, all of those things that are buzzwords. But it's like you actually have to think about it, critically think, not just read it and forget it. Yeah. So I would expose myself to those things if I was that person.
Absolutely. I would like to give a shout out to your dad too in this podcast. He has the Catalyst Network. So if you are looking to learn about leadership, about all these different things that can make you a better business owner or better person in general, Rob Faw is probably one of the smartest person that I know. We've recorded a ton of his content here in the studio, so I got to listen to him and doing all of that very deep and methodical content. So if you are interested in doing that, I would definitely Google Rob Faw, the Catalyst Network.
RobFaw.com. It's my Catalyst Network. And again, it's like, what other 71-year-olds do you know that got their PhD in the last 5 months?
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
So he's definitely got that growth mindset. Age is just a number type thing, and he acts young. Yeah. But he's also the guy that's working out every day. He's in the office extremely early. He does go to bed early because he wakes up early, but it's a get after it type approach. Yeah. And, I think you need that. Everybody doesn't have to be the same. We're not saying that, but there are certain attributes, that you can pick off. And it's good to have people that you look up to or that are a mentor, that, hey, I want to be a little bit like them. In my life, I've had certain people or companies that I've looked at. And the coolest part is the second I get a little bit older and I become kind of like that person, I'm not intrigued by them anymore and I want something. And that's where you're just never satisfied. It's not like, hey, drop the mic, let's go live on an island. You gotta, hopefully people that want to be entrepreneurs, you're having a lot of fun growing and dealing with the setbacks and reframing your mind when something bad happens. And I experienced that. How can I make it better? So those types of conversations.
Absolutely. A few minutes earlier, you mentioned books. What are some of the books that has impacted you the most?
Yeah. So the book I'm reading right now is Dare to Lead by Brené Brown. She talks a lot about trust, vulnerability. I would definitely, that's fresh in my head, so I would recommend that. I think some of the classics are Stephen Covey, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, Jim Collins, Good to Great. One in particular that, depending on where you are in your entrepreneurial journey, that I just loved. I actually read it twice and I got the handout. I think David Clemens, who you and I are a mutual friend, he's one of, I believe, 500 people in a special group with this gentleman, but it's Dan Martell, Buy Back Your Time.
Yeah.
That's I don't know if
Game
you've read
changer.
that. Yeah, that's you read that and you're like, if that doesn't change you a little bit, the buyback, you're like, I don't know what could kind of thing. So that'd probably be on my short list of.
For the people that are watching this that have not read Buy Back Your Time, can you give me a quick synopsis of how important it is and like some of the message that Dan has in the book?
Yep. Yeah. So basically, my recollection of the book that kind of really resonated with me, I read it probably a couple years ago, is, just being extremely efficient and intentional with your time, block scheduling. So a lot of time management type skills. Also delegation. So it goes back to, if we kind of draw a quadrant of what we're good at, what is easy for us to do. Usually what you're good at and what's easy for you are usually go hand in hand. What creates a lot of caloric burn, like let's say you're not a spreadsheet guy and I tell you to go to work on the spreadsheet for 5 hours. You're going to feel like you just ran a marathon after that, right? So if you can identify those things, and in his book, he's got a nice little quadrant that kind of what gives you energy versus what sucks the energy out of you. Those would be just kind of rhetorical questions that I'd be asking myself if I was an entrepreneur right now, and really kind of thinking through, okay, what applies to me? What doesn't? Should I get an assistant to help with this? Should I delegate this? What am I good at? What am I not good at? How am I time scheduling? Am I being more intentional? So those kind of like the genre and the gist of the book. He does a lot better than what I just said in 60 seconds, but I would definitely recommend reading it.
Yeah, it's a fantastic book. The first time I was reading it, I could not put it down. And I think it's a book that can completely transform any like new entrepreneurs or somebody that is just like in the beginning and starting their entrepreneur journey. One of my favorite part of the book is the ladder that he described in there, where the first one is like when you go and hire an executive assistant. Some people obviously like they make the mistake and hire like a COO first, or like, hiring a bunch of other people. But like that kind of like took me back and say, hey, these are the different steps until you get to that level, which was like a fantastic read for sure. So thank you for sharing that.
Can I throw one more out there?
Absolutely.
So this is not a business book, but it's a book called The Noticer by Andy Andrews. And the quick story with that is I received the book when we were at my old office, and I got it in the mail, and I didn't even really know who it was. I saw it. It sat on my desk for 2 or 3 days, and then I started reading it. And it was funny because my dad, who his office is, I think, 2 or 3 blocks away from me at the time, he said, hey, one of my buddies asked if I ever received the book. By any chance, they delivered it to Joe Faw instead of Rob Faw, right? What the book is about, it's actually a fiction book, but it's about perspective. And so think in your terms of gratitude or reframing. So I'll tell a quick story. So the story is about, in the book, a guy is homeless. His parents died. He's 21 years old. A guy named Jones comes to him and gives him all these historical biographies to read. And he says, hey, would you like to go to lunch tomorrow? And the young man says, yeah, I'd love that. Kind of excited, right? He's used to eating not that great of food. So Jones and the young man go sit on a bench. He's like, let's meet over there. This is the setting's kind of right in, I believe it's like Gulf Breeze or like in the Panhandle area, Alabama, something where like that. And they've got the fishing boats going out of the harbor. He's sitting on the bench, no shoes on, and he pulls out beanie weenies and sardines. And the homeless boy says, Jones, honestly, I was kind of expecting a little bit more. And Jones looks at him and he goes, what do you mean? We've got waterfront dining with our feet in the sand, and we're eating surf and turf. Obviously, it's a hyperbole a little bit, but the reason, so there's lots of stories like that in the book, but it's like reframing perspective, right? I'm not trying to say be optimistic and glass is always, half full or half empty. I'm not necessarily saying that. I'm just saying that when you have a lot of gratitude and you think about, you are eating surf and turf technically. Now it's not filet mignon and a lobster, but it's similar, right? So I say that because I think we live life through the perspectives that we have, but we do as human beings have the ability to reframe, rethink those perspectives. And I would encourage people to read that book and maybe steal a couple things out of there and implement them in your own life.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I would like to expand on that a little bit because I think this is going to be something that is very important for entrepreneurs out there. What advice would you give to people as it relates to reframing like we might be going through the hardest journey, but like, when you flip that on its head, that may be like, even more impactful. So what advice would you give to somebody that is watching this that might be going through the thick of it about reframing their circumstance?
So it's easy to say, hey, just make it look a little bit more positive, right? Positive mindset, things like that. If you look up on Instagram, one of my good friends, Kevin Melker, it's called Melker Blueprints. He talks a lot about this. Andrew Huberman Lab talks a lot about this. You need to like think of it from a philosophical, also a psychological and biological way. Meaning, if I'm struggling with something, I probably have a lot of cortisol in my body. I might even be tired. So what is everyone, reframe your mind? No, don't reframe your mind. I can control my body better than my mind. My mind's crazy, right? It's not fun all the time to be in my mind, right? I think stuff I shouldn't think, but God gave me goodwill to be able to actually talk and do something with the thought. So just because I have a bad thought doesn't mean I make a bad decision. So what I try to do is I try to hack my body more than I hack my mind. So things like turning music on is clinically proven to release certain dopamine, and you feel better when music's on. Going for a walk, going for a run, having a good conversation with a friend, pausing, breathing, right? Those are the things that I would say are the little hacks that I do that when I'm starting to go down a rabbit hole of maybe where I don't want to go, I don't try to fix my brain. I try to fix my body, and then it's easier to address my brain and manage my brain.
I love it. Thank you for sharing that advice. That was awesome. Now, if you had to pick one book out of all the ones that you have read over your business career, what would that be and why?
I gotta be honest. I'm not prepared to answer that. And
it's a deep question.
No,
requires a lot of thinking.
Can I reframe? Can I reposition the question from a movie standpoint?
Absolutely.
All right. So right now I'm watching on Netflix a series called The Men Who Built America.
Fantastic.
Have you watched it?
Yes.
You have.
So good.
It's kind of funny, right? Because the actors are, it's not like a first class acting job, but the stories that are told. So I think the answer is that, and maybe it's because I'm getting a little older now, middle age, right? The history associated with America, associated with entrepreneurship, associated with the Industrial Revolution, associated with things that we take for granted, electricity. I'm on the episode that's talking about Edison and getting rid of the kerosene, and now it's that. So having a perspective on that and thinking about what those companies and men did 100, late 1800s, early 1900s into the mid 20th century, I think that I'm at a point where I took it for granted and I didn't really have a lot of gratitude associated with some of that historical significance. I mean, you're from another country. Yep. I've got a couple buddies from South Africa. If I just ask them about their history, I mean, it's crazy what's going on over there with apartheid and all that, right? So I would say anybody that wants to have a really good time in the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years, it probably would behoove you to pay a little homage to what happened in the past. And I'm not talking about the last 20 years, maybe the last 150, 200 years. And once you start gaining a perspective, I'm starting to now notice and correlate current events with historical events. Mm-hmm. Oh, this is kind of similar too. It's not the exact same. I'm not trying to make that argument. But it probably would be biographies with some of the gentlemen and women that were the movers and shakers, and we could probably come up with 10 of them real quick. Abraham Lincoln, Carnegie, Vanderbilt, Edison. Those guys and those companies.
Yeah, one of the.
I didn't mean to not answer your question. No, that was the best answer I could come up with.
That was fantastic, and that kind of also reminded me of. I attended Myron's Golden event a couple weeks ago, and. He says something along the lines of if you want to be healthy, you need to understand the past history of wealth.
Yeah.
And he kind of took us back to all the different ages and what made those ages and how they build on top of each other. And to now today, where we are at with AI, the disruptions and kind of stuff like that. But for you to be successful and be wealthy, kind of learning from past history and how those people took advantage of the ages that they were in.
Yeah.
And how people need to kind of not live in the past by kind of thinking about oh, I'm just good at video production.
Yeah.
And I need to focus on that, but live into the age and try to incorporate the different ages that you are in to be successful. And most of the people that were successful during their ages is because they took advantage of the time that they were in, whether it's agriculture, other technology, but those people took advantage of the ages that they were in to kind of really bolster forward. So,
well, and age helps, right? So think about, you and I and our adult life. There's basically been 3 major macro events or paradigm shifts or momentum. The first one being right in the late 90s, early 2000s was the internet, right? The internet became mainstream. I know the internet was around in the 80s, but it became mainstream right around there. Amazon was selling books, then they start selling everything, right? So businesses, e-commerce, the way all of our habits today, what that means to the brick and mortar, that was a very interesting thing that happened. The internet was monumental. The next thing was, let's call it around, you might know better than me, but let's say 2005, 6, 7, 8, 9-ish, was the smartphone, wherever my phone's over there, but your smartphone, having the internet and connectivity on your phone. So think about what we do now in terms of content, and everything needs to be mobile now. I bet you, more than half your audience is watching this on a smartphone right now. And I think the third one in our lifetime right now is AI, right? Yeah. And we're already experiencing large language models. What is that going to mean? At some level, it's scary, but people thought that about the internet. People thought that about phones as well. And there's always pros and cons, right? Yeah. If your kids are addicted to devices, we already know that what that does to your brain. And so I'm not saying that there aren't issues associated with each of those events, but if you can keep going back, you've got, industrial revolution, cars, electricity. It's very fascinating and meaningful, and you can correlate some things to what we're going to be experiencing in the future.
Absolutely. And all of them kind of build on top of the other one too. Over time, Walmart had to systematize the way that they sell their stuff. So they now were focused more on the processes and systems and all of that, which has helped them explode. But that was kind of because now they were opening their stores and all of that. But now with the AI time that we are in, it's Myron says this is the first time that every single part of what we had in the past is incorporated into one thing, meaning your phone now is the digital real estate.
Yeah.
And for the internet kind of part is in the phone. So every single thing from the past times are incorporated in one thing. And it was kind of very...
I totally agree with that. And from an AI standpoint, right? What AI is doing is, if you can start utilizing it correctly, and we're all kind of in the same boat, right? We're thinking through, where do I apply to my business? How can I use it properly? It enhances efficiency beyond belief. I mean, I remember my grandfather, who was in the fix and flips, which is who we were working with in the summer times, right around 2009 is when he passed away. So I think it was probably 07, 08. He said, Joey, Jerome, you guys need to go down to the county to go get this public record so that you can decide whether to buy the... It's now I could probably get that in maybe 26 seconds on my phone. So we're still getting the same information. We're still having the same process. I can just do it so much more efficiently. And then the real question that I have for everybody, including myself, is, well, what are you doing with the extra time? Because that's what you're getting. You're gaining time with all of these technological enhancements. And I'm seeing the differences. It's actually getting easier to compete. Yeah. Because I think that the bad part of social media, or the stuff that sucks you in, we've got a lot of people that are spending a lot of time on things that really don't move the needle. And if you can be one of the folks that actually spends time on things that does move the needle, makes you more efficient, makes you more profitable, makes you more, growth minded, those kind of things, I'm not sure everybody's doing that. I think a lot of people are looking at what their friends are doing on Instagram last weekend, competing. Here's the dress, here's the this, here's the beach. I'm not saying that's not important. I'm actually not judging that. I'm just saying it's not necessarily making you better at business tomorrow.
Yeah. And to expand on that a little bit, Myron Golden says from this whole thing that I just described, that the way people can make wealth right now with the age that we're in is two things. Learn how to communicate better, and how to like imagine, like, things. So the people that like the extra time that they have now, they can dedicate that to imagination and thinking about better ideas and better things. And with communication, learn how to communicate with AI better, and communicate with other people, better as well. So if you do those two things, you not guaranteed, but you are on your way to utilizing the age that we're in to, make wealth.
Yeah.
Well,
and again, I mean, look at podcasts and what you're doing now too, right? This is storytelling, and we're authentically having a conversation. We're telling a story, and storytelling. I'm kind of piggybacking off of your ability to communicate and articulate your thoughts and vocabulary and those kind of things. I mean, I took a class recently on how to read quicker, because I wanted to read more books, right? And I'm like, well, should I just be listening to them? My problem is I can't listen above a 1.5 because I'm noticing I don't comprehend as much. So I started reading, and it's just funny. So here's a stat that I learned from taking that class. Did you know that you and I think 1,000 words a minute, roughly? That's our ability. We have the ability to process and think 1,000 words a minute. And then we have the ability, a college-educated person in the United States of America has the ability to read approximately 230 to 250 words a minute. The best public speakers in the world, which maybe Tony Robbins or a couple other guys that you would think are great public speakers, should only speak 160 words a minute. Otherwise, their audience can't retain it. I just said slow down. I probably need to speak a little slower, right? What's funny about that is think about what that means and how difficult it is to communicate. If I'm thinking 1,000 words a minute and I should only be speaking 160 words a minute, now I have to take all those thoughts, articulate them to 16% of those thoughts are going to come out.
Yeah.
And then what percent are you comprehending, retaining, truly engaging? I'm guessing it's not 100%.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm just pointing out how difficult communication is. Not because we want it. So you have to work on it. There's other ways to communicate: tone, body language. And if we trust one another, we're vulnerable with one another, it'll make it easier to communicate, right?
Yeah.
And then if we can articulate words and thoughts and tell a good story and be authentic, now you've got that kind of secret sauce. Everything comes together nicely.
Absolutely. When you were talking about that, I'm kind of thinking, like, I really did not want to do this, what we're doing over here, but I wanted to be a better communicator. What do you do when you want to become a better communicator? You throw yourself in the things that scares you the most. Yep. So that's what I did. Started doing this talk show, but also slow down, and because you have so many thoughts going in your mind, like to be able to communicate that effectively, don't try to kind of do more. In the shorter time, you're not going to be able to communicate that clearly as you want to.
So, what you're doing is, and I'm sure you're way more comfortable today than you were in our first episode.
100%.
Yeah. Like, it's like, you've got to be comfortable being uncomfortable. And I
think that's important. Let's do, what advice would you give to some people about?
Read David Goggins' book, and then realize that he's an animal and it's, on hyperbole, and try to do 50% of it. I hate doing the dishes at my house. I do the dishes at my house every single day, and I don't complain, and I force myself to do it. I don't know. I just do it. It was raining the other day, and I didn't want to go for a run, and I just went for a run. So I'm constantly trying to challenge and play games with myself to create this like intrinsic motivation that I kind of have, but I don't have. So like I'm literally playing games with myself. That would be some advice. I always go back, I was a big Michael Jordan fan. And one of the best stories he told in that show, The Last Dance on Netflix, which I would recommend, especially if you're a Chicago Bulls fan or you just like Michael Jordan. I forget the context, but it was a younger guy was guarding him in game 4, game 5, right, of the NBA Finals. And Michael Jordan said, let's call his name Byron, I can't remember. So, Byron was talking crap about me. That's what he said out loud. And so he basically started saying all these things, how Byron was talking crap. Jordan only had like 28 points that game. The next game he came out and got 50, all these assists, and just they won the game, right? So go back to The Last Dance, and he's doing an interview when he's like 55, 60 years old, however old he is now. And he goes, hey, the interviewer said, we talked to Byron, and he said he swears on his life that he never said that about you. He's like, why would I say something negative about Michael Jordan? I didn't. And Michael Jordan goes, oh yeah, I made that shit up. Wow. And he goes, what do you mean? He goes, I made it up. I told all the reporters, I told all my teammates, I literally made the whole thing up because I knew that I needed more motivation than I currently had. So the next game, I convinced myself that was true. It wasn't. I admit he's telling the truth. I wasn't at the time. But that's how I was able to go motivate myself. So my point is, even the guys and the gals that are at the top, they're still playing games with themselves to get that intrinsic motivation to be who they want to be tomorrow, which might be a little different than who they are today. Yeah. And that's okay. Maybe we don't lie and those kind of things, but at the same time, like you get the point of what Michael Jordan was trying to say.
Absolutely. Be comfortable with the uncomfortable.
Trying.
Boom. I love it. Now, let's transition to talking a little bit about Bay-to-Bay properties. What are some of the things that you have done that has positioned you guys to become a $150 million a year construction company?
Yep. So, when we go back, we started in 2003. I would say we really kind of worked the kinks out and became what I'll call a real company around 2008, 2009. Kate got involved in 2000. She was working with one of our accounting firms, and then so she was indirectly involved. But then around 2011, 2012, the number one thing that she said in 2012, we did $20 million that year, and we were having a meeting with Jerome, myself, and her, and she said, I don't think we should grow next year. And I was like, what are you talking about? Why would we do that? We've been growing every single year. She goes, because the likelihood of us crashing and burning is higher. We need to get our infrastructure set up. And at first I was like, no, what do you mean? Like, no, we'll definitely. She was right. So that year is actually almost scary. So I think we did 20,300,000 in revenue that year. And the next year we did 20,500,000, like something like within 0.0 something percent. But what we did was we engaged a project management software. We built all of our SOPs. We started building in that infrastructure that then was allowing us to be able to scale and grow. And that is also the same time that we decided to get 100% out of custom home residential, because that's a hard business to scale. So from a Bay-to-Bay standpoint, that was a very pivotal moment. The other pivotal moment was probably COVID. So, everything's going pretty good. We're making a good living. We're getting in all of these awards and da-da-da-da. And then COVID hit. And the first time in my life, we just didn't have any projects coming in. And you got to remember, right? We were the guys that never charged our clients more money for all the cost overruns that were happening. You'd hire an electrician for $50,000 to do a job. He calls you and says, hey, if you need me out there next Monday, my supplier just hit me for $15,000. I need $65,000. Wow. Imagine doing that on 23 projects. So we decided to eat all of those costs because our contracts weren't set up. And in hindsight, maybe I would have played my cards differently, but it scared us because over an 18-month period, that was $4 million that we had to just eat.
Wow.
So that was the first time I was like, oh man, this could go away as soon as quick. You're not just Bay-to-Bay and you did it. So I really became very humble, and I realized, we made some managerial changes. I realized at that time, it can be taken away from you. And what we did is what came out of that, we binge read the book Traction. You know that book, yep, right?
Fantastic book.
For the listeners. Yep. Wickman.
Wickman.
Yeah, Gino Wickman. Gino Wickman. But, making sure we got the right people in the right seats with the right process in place. And then what we did, we were doing work for, you name it, top Fortune 500 companies, probably 7 or 8 of the Fortune 500, JP Morgan Chase, Walgreens, Walmart, Panera Bread. We were doing everything. We were kind of like Applebee's. We would sell you anything you wanted, right? And what we realized is that, but what are we good at? And that's a really interesting question. And
what is your gold medal talent?
So we were good enough to do all of it, but what were we really good at? So from that, we decided to hyper-focus and be super intentional right now on car washes, gas stations, and storage facilities. Now we're moving into daycare, industrial. We're looking at a couple others. We're doing a build to rent right now. So we have what we call a stretch program. We're very comfortable and confident on daycares. That'll be a good fit for us. But my message and my answer to you is the intentionality associated with picking just those 3 projects that we worked on. Well, then you become an expert because that's all you're thinking about. That's all you're doing. I'm saying no probably 2 times more than I was saying yes to projects. I bet you I was asked to do no less than 25 Starbucks, Chipotle's, and other QSRs in a 2-year period. And I said no every single time.
Wow. Incredible.
Now, my personality didn't want to say no, but once I made the commitment and once Kate, me, Jerome, our leadership team, once we all agreed on the strategy, I didn't have an option to not say no because otherwise you're inauthentic, which is not who I was going to be. So I would encourage, don't run around and say, I'm opportunistic. I can do anything. We're a commercial general contractor. Like, yeah, you might be licensed to do anything, but you're not good at everything.
Yeah.
So I'm a big time believer in that. I actually get extremely uncomfortable if I have to live in a I can do everything world because I just think it's fake. So I specifically make sure my clients know we're really good at this. And yeah, we could do this, but we're not going to.
Yeah.
And honestly, they like it better because now I don't have to call anybody to get work in these categories because your systems are better, your lessons learned are better, your staff is better. And we chase predictable outcomes and that makes everything more predictable.
I absolutely love that. For anybody out there that want to focus and they have so many different shiny objects that they could chase, but obviously making that transition, making that commitment to like transition to focusing on one thing and doing it well is hard.
Yeah,
because that is gonna be a period of time where it's gonna be hard because you're not bringing the revenue. How do you manage that? Like, what advice would you give to somebody that wants to do that, but that is going to be turning away revenue that could help them, even with some other businesses?
You got to think of it as you're not turning away revenue that can help you. You're turning away revenue because it actually will make you more money. So it's a paradigm shift. Like saying no makes you more successful. Saying no makes you more money than saying yes. Having said that, and I think the underlying question is it's also a timing function. So I'm not necessarily saying that everybody that has business, right? Let's say you have 10 clients, go tell 9 of them no tomorrow. Right, there should be a strategy and you work towards what is the best fit. Now, what we did is we looked at it from like the backwards up, meaning what did we think our staff and our team members were going to be good at? What could we process? Going back to 2009, we built probably 75 dollar stores. We were really good at them. No one could, if we were bidding against 3 guys, I could get it if I wanted it. We knew it. We understood it. So we got a taste of that and kind of got away from it. And then we wanted to go back to it. So that's what I would say. Let's look at you. You've got, maybe I'm making this up because I don't know, but let's say you have 50 clients. If you did an analysis of those 50 clients, remember, go back to the Dan Martell, buy back your time. Mm-hmm. You have to correlate your time, right, with the client. I'd say, all right, what 50 clients? Which ones are the most profitable? Which ones are the most meaningful to your strategy? In every business, you should be able to do that. And it kind of like, you'll start realizing whether it's the 80-20 rule or 60-40, it'll start telling you on paper what you should be focused on because it brings you more energy. You're better at doing it. You get all the accolades. You're not having to put out as many fires. You're more profitable. And so you kind of have to like analyze that. If the way I know somebody maybe just doesn't get it or isn't ready is you would say things like, well, I make money on all my clients. So you're telling me every single one of your clients has the exact same headache factor, right?
Yeah.
Well, no, these 2 are great and these 2 are just, okay, so the 2 that you're struggling with, how much time, they suck up like at least 40 or 50% of the organization's time. Okay, they might be the ones you should respectfully, don't burn a bridge, but hey, we're not longer a good fit.
Yeah.
So those would be like the rhetorical questions I'd be asking somebody and how I can kind of think through it. And honestly, I'm just retelling stories of what happened to us.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
what we did. Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the things that I remember that is very memorable to me when you were filming content here with Kate is the core values that you guys have set for yourself, which I thought were like fantastic, and they were intentional and meaningful to your organization. Can you talk a little bit about like why you picked them and why those were instrumental to your growth as well?
Yeah. Yes, I will. So previously, what I mean by that is in the early days of Beta Bay, before COVID, our core values were an acronym on respect, right? Professionalism, integrity, character, lead by example.
This kind of stuff.
You know, the stuff that you would, of course, I believe in all of those words, have integrity. Like, the problem was we surveyed our team members, and I think it was either 0 or 2% of them could regurgitate the core values of the company, which is a joke, right? It's like, good job. It looks good on a wall, and they're just big words, but what do they mean? So we decided to get a little bit more edgy, and we broke it down into 4. The first one is no jerks. And that means a 360 perspective. We don't want jerk clients. We don't want jerk team members. We don't want jerk consultants. Doesn't mean you can fire a jerk client the second they're a jerk, but you can categorize them as a jerk behind the scenes, and you can decide not to work with them again. I've got a guy right now that I didn't think his attitude was good. I don't think he would treat the team members correctly. So one of 2 things is going to happen. Well, one thing already did happen, but I'm going to tell him, hey, unfortunately, we're willing to do this project, but we're not willing on the contract. We're not going to communicate with you. You're not going to be running If you don't want that, no problem. It's not a good fit. Yeah. Right. So we believe in no jerks. That is a core value. The other one is the sundown guarantee. What that is communicate with your team members before the sun goes down every day. Proactive communication, right? Walmart has something similar to that. And it's just a culture of communication. So we got to respond quickly. We got to stay on top of it. Do we hit that perfectly every single time? No, but it is a core value. So if you're constantly missing those dates, we want to be reasonable, right? The other one is hold the vision, trust the process, which means you're allowed to have good ideas at Beta Bay, but please just do it our way for the first 6 months and then come back and tell us what you think you should improve. It goes back to McDonald's, right? McDonald's, the reason McDonald's was good wasn't because they had good cheeseburgers. It's because they had the best process in 1958 or whatever year it was at getting hamburgers to you as quickly as possible. Now everybody does this. That's not a competitive edge, but the process and the consistency. Like, how can I get a cup of Starbucks coffee in Singapore that tastes the same as Safety Harbor?
Yeah.
Their process is unbelievable. So if we care about scaling, and if we care about being self-sufficient, and if we care about being diversified, the only way I can do that is by having a really good process that people are held accountable to, and they buy in, they drink the Kool-Aid. If you don't want to drink the Kool-Aid, no problem, go work for somebody else. Well, I'm not mad. I'm not saying we're a good fit for everybody, but we need that. And then the last one is forget average, be legendary. And that's just, there is a better way. We know that construction in our minds is a little bit archaic, right? And so if we understand our process, if we can deliver closeout binders within 3 weeks instead of 3 months, these are things that we know we can do. And because we're doing just 3 different projects, we already know the answer. We know what the closeout, we are the expert. You're a client, you're only doing 2 projects. I've got 14 going on. You want to know what I know. So we're trying really hard to say, hey, forget average. We're not chasing being average. We know how to be a B company. That's not that hard for us. We want to be legendary. And we're not saying be Michael Jordan legendary. We're saying have a legendary experience, that we are better or different than everybody else. And we define that by being in the top 10% in every metric that we're looking at in the industry.
Boom. I love that. Obviously, one of the most important thing to help an organization scale is the team.
Yeah.
So what are your secrets of attracting and retaining the best team members?
Yep. So, I mean, we care a lot about team members. We try to provide a culture and an environment that perpetuates where you would want to work. Things that I've been told, from people that have left our company and come back. Man, I thought you guys were kidding when you said all those things. Like, I thought that the grass is a little greener. Maybe I could get 10 grand more from another company. But the weight and the crap that it put on my family and on my psyche, right? So we're trying really hard to create a culture and an environment that perpetuates all of the core values. So that'd be number one. Number two is we're in the business of attracting good clients. We want people that want to be held accountable. If you don't want to be held accountable, and I don't mean like we're going to be rude about it, just here's your job description, here's your role, here's our process, then you're not a good fit if you don't want to do that. If you do want to do it, man, we love it. Right? We love the process. It's kind of like that Nick Saban, right? You're with Alabama. You're constantly bringing in new people, but they all understand the process and the Alabama Crimson Tide way. So therefore, they buy in so quick, right? So that's the other thing we're doing. Now, I would say we still need good people. I get a little nervous because we're in Safety Harbor. Do I have enough people in our little area from an office standpoint? So I'm thinking through, are there other areas in the country that we should maybe have a satellite office?
Yeah.
There's pros and cons to that. I'm not sure exactly yet. But we're constantly looking. But the other thing is if you want to be part of something great, legendary, it's kind of like maybe I'm not this guy, but I'm guessing like I would think it'd be really cool to work for Tesla.
Yeah.
Right? Or one of these AI companies. You want that culture, you want everything about it. So we're trying to be that group and that opportunity. But if you want to be cool and you just want a great name and you want to make a name for yourself, like, I don't know if Beta Bay is right for you.
Yeah.
Because the way that I know that the company is doing well is if the people at the top can leave or be replaced for all the right reasons, and the company still survives. That, to me, is the definition of a sustainable, self-sufficient company. If it always has to be Joe's involved, we're failing.
Yeah.
And so, I've had to make the tough decision at times to back out of meetings, back out of my engagement because of my personality at times. But for the greater good of the company, let other people step up. And I'm having 10 times more fun watching other people succeed compared to me succeed right now.
I absolutely love it. That was really great. I know we have a hard stop in like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
We're gonna do a quick quick hitters question. So if you had to share one thing that has attributed to Beta Bay to become a $150 million company, what would that be?
Discipline. Am I allowed more than one word?
Yeah, you can do. Yeah. You can.
Yeah, I would say, so my words that come to mind real quick would be being intentional, being disciplined, resiliency. Those are the things that we've done, I think, better than others. And again, man, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but we don't have a scarcity mindset. We say no more than we say yes, which leads to predictable outcomes. And in my mind, we're in the business of getting predictable outcomes. That's how we compete, and that's how we make decisions. So that's all we care about, is getting those predictable outcomes.
Fantastic. What are some of the current state of the construction industry nowadays?
Yeah. So I'm fairly optimistic as we get into 2026, from things that I've read and kind of sources that I have, so to speak. I think most economists are saying that we've kind of hit this soft landing. So I'm not as worried as I was maybe 6 months ago from a macro standpoint. We were talking tariffs and all these other things for a long time. So I think that 2026 could be interesting. Once the interest rates start dropping, I think you're going to see a little bit of capital flow easier. Right now, guys are struggling with equity. Where to deploy it, how to deploy it. Everybody will say, we're conservative and we want good deals. It's like, for 22 years, people have been chasing. I don't know anybody that would chase the opposite of that. So that's not new news. I think it's more just a function of, how do I raise money? Not me, but how do my clients raise money? What is the cost of that capital? What is the market showing? They make money, and now the spread on that. So I think interest rates dropping is going to be a big deal overall for existing houses, which then will spill over existing house sales, which will then spill over to the commercial world, help with rents on storage a little bit. Mm-hmm. So I think interest rates, and I'm excited to get kind of through this fall, because I think it'll kind of drop maybe 3 or 4 times before the end of the year. We watch the 10-year treasury a lot. That has a lot of meaning in our business. So once that kind of gets back to more normalcy, I think we'll have a good kind of macro environment to meet up with our little micro environment.
That's awesome. Now, looking back over your journey, what is one thing that you would have changed, or what is one thing you would have done differently?
And
why?
I don't know. I mean, maybe I would have listened to somebody that was my age sooner. Like, we all have to have experiences and we all have to mature and we all have to grow. Like, I get that. You get that. I get that. It's really for me, it's like, man, instead of it taking 20 years, could I have done it in 12? So if I was younger, especially with all the resources that are out there today, I'd be binging all of the things we're talking about and maybe try to have the mindset that I have today at the age of 35. Example is we started a little insurance company on the side and it had a lot of good things going for it, but I didn't feel like managing the 2 people that were involved. So I just sold it. And it didn't sell it for a lot of money, but if I am who I am now, I would have got a call center. I would have blown it up and that it would have worked because I had that little window of time that we had a unique proposition there. So I think I would just say find a mentor. All the things that we touched on, just do everything that I'm doing today 10 years prior. That'd be my answer.
I love it. What is the biggest advice that you would give to somebody if they wanted to scale to $100 million business?
Yeah, be vulnerable and admit, write down on a piece of paper what you're not good at. The second you do that and start really living it and saying it out loud to people, you'll then be able to start figuring out where do you fit in, whatever business they're in. Am I in a growth market? Am I not? What are the pros? What are the cons? So I would say be vulnerable. And with that, get an understanding of what you're not good at instead of just only focused on the 1 or 2 attributes that you are really good at. Because if you're even contemplating that, you're probably off the charts good at 1 or 2 things. Just admit what you're not good at, say it out loud, and let's kind of build a team. Because again, I don't know that many people that can scale with 1 or 2 employees or 1 or 2 team members, right? So if you need to scale and if you want to get bigger, you got to kind of do it with a team. So then you need to really incorporate all those other items.
Awesome. We have 20 seconds left. What is the way that people can get a hold of you if they wanted to find about Bay to Bay or you personally?
Yeah, baytobayproperties.com. From a personal standpoint, my email is jfaw@baytobayproperties.com. More than happy to kind of hit anybody back with any questions or talk about entrepreneurship or maybe some of their journey or what their quick questions are. But I would say those two platforms.
Awesome. There you have it. I hope you guys got a lot from Joe today. Super thankful for
Thank
you coming and hanging out and
always fun.
Learned so much from you. We definitely need to do part 2. There you have it. It's fire, baby. Let's go.